So thank you once again for being here for today's events. My name is Jason Bystrak, and I joined D&H back in January to build out and really expand what we're doing with our cloud services practice. And what my goal is today is to maybe share some information about what you, as our partners, can do to maximize the cloud market opportunity. And really specifically, what I want to break it down to is 8 steps that you can use to build out your cloud business practice better. How many people, I just want to get to know the audience a bit more, how many people would say that they're successfully selling cloud solutions today? A few hands. How about how many sell Office 365? A few more hands. People attaching more than one solution to Office 365? Okay. How many people would consider themselves managed service providers? And if you're doing that in a recurring revenue model where you're invoicing your customers monthly? Okay, good. So about what we expected. So we did some anecdotal research, with our customer base, and what we found is, we're dealing with about 15,000 different partners in North America with D&H, and frankly, only about 15% of them have successfully transitioned into a recurring revenue model, frankly, around delivering managed services and building out a cloud solutions practice. But I've been doing this for over a decade now, working with some great people, and had the chance to work with just literally thousands of different partners, either indirectly through our teams and programs we've built, or directly with one-on-one engagements. And you start to see some of the common themes of what those who are successful do to build out that business. So what we really broke it down to is what are some of the functional changes that you need to make within your business to be successful with cloud and managed services, and that's what I want to share with you today. So we kind of present this in a little bit of a checklist type of mentality, right? We can share this information afterwards and would love to sit down with you and figure out how you apply these to your business. You'll probably see that some of you are doing some of these things we're going to talk about very well today, right? Give yourself a round of applause for that, right? And how do you do more of it? And hopefully there's some things in here that you're seeing that this is an opportunity for me to do more and expand my business and take it to the next level like that, okay? So what I'm going to start with is step 1 in the process, which is building out your solution. What is it you need to do to be successful with cloud, right? So the first step is that you need to decide what exactly you're going to sell. So some of the things you want to consider within that model is that you, believe it or not, want to pre-build your cloud solution ahead of time. You're not looking to necessarily be as flexible as maybe you are with an on-premise or off-the-shelf type of opportunity, because when you think about cloud, you have to be able to service this afterwards, right? If there's a problem with it, they're going to call you every single time, and you can't just go and say, well, call the manufacturer, right? You are the cloud service provider, so you need to build something that is scalable, standardized, and easily repeatable to be successful with that. How do you pick the right solutions to be able to take to market? So first of all, think about your own market research, right? What are your customers asking for? What are you seeing when you come to different conferences? You see all kinds of people present, so take a look to see where the highest growth areas are. Take a look to see what type of skills you already have within your business today. What are you selling that can be delivered in a cloud business model that you can make that conversion, right, from on-premise into cloud? You want to think about your technical skills and your sales skills that you already have within the team, right? What types of customers do you have? What are those salespeople reaching out to? What are your engineers able to do? Can you repurpose some of those skills to be successful with cloud? That's a consideration as you're building out the solution you're going to take to market. Oftentimes, you want to start with what we call an anchor vendor or a foundational vendor. So I mentioned Office 365, for example. I think everyone would agree that that is a highly in-demand solution that most people are selling. So why not start with that as your foundation, but then figure out how you wrap other solutions around it to build out a successful cloud practice with that, right? Next is you want to integrate your professional and managed services into it. This shouldn't be an afterthought. You don't sell a cloud service and then afterwards start thinking about, well, what am I going to do to service this? How do I migrate it? How do I manage it? How do I provide support for it? This should all be part of the planning process as you're taking the solution to market and figuring out what to do. So again, it's all comes down to planning. You want to consider branding it with that anchor vendor, but then maybe you white label the solution. So you don't necessarily want to be a me too and just say, yeah, we sell Office 365. You want to sell your own version of Office 365. So think about what is it you're going to create as a solution that adds business value, solves technical problems, and is your own brand at the same time along with that. You want to package these solutions based on your typical customers. How many people know the average number of seats that their end customers have? Has done the data research? A couple hands going up. That's good. right? I think that's really important in a cloud business because, again, you're going to have to sell and service this. So start thinking about what is that average size. You might have 2 or 3 or 4 different packages based on the size of customers you sell into. But I can tell you that D&H, our average end user size is 18.1 people, right? So we've built out solutions, for example, that fit into that size customer that we deal with, right, through our partner base like you. So you should consider taking the same approach, and that'll help you build out the right solutions for success. You want to bundle things to drive predictable profit and differentiation. You don't want to sell standalone solutions in the cloud. If you can avoid just selling a naked solution, we call it, naked vendor like that, that's going to basically degrade your margin, and it's going to be less profitable, and you're going to have challenges scaling that business and maintaining profitability with it. So again, bundle these ahead of time with it. And the last bullet is build these for business outcomes, right? And you can focus on either vertical or horizontal markets. So a vertical market, maybe you're really good in healthcare or finance or legal. Horizontally, maybe you're great at selling to HR or to sales or to the customer service department. Think about how those solutions that you're building might help address the customer markets you're dealing with. So just an example you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, I call this my killer cloud cluster. But how do you maybe mix together email with endpoint security, with a backup solution, maybe a file sharing solution, you bundle in your managed services for help desk, and then a professional services for migration and setup. That is what you would put together for a solution like that. Now, if you notice, we didn't talk at all about specific vendors other than anecdotally with Microsoft, but we haven't done that yet. You haven't picked a vendor yet because that's step 2. So once you've decided what you're going to sell, now you want to go and bring in the right vendor solutions that are going to help you do that optimally, most profitably, and something that you're going to be able to take care of. So some of the consideration for vetting out vendor partners, first of all, think about your relationship with that vendor and what their overall channel strategy is. Right? You want to understand, are they competing directly with me? Who is it they typically sell through? What's the relationship like? How long have they been in the channel? These are important considerations as you're picking out a vendor partner. There's not a right or a wrong answer, but you need to know what you're getting into with that. Second is understand the partner programs and resources. What are they going to do for you? Do they have rebate programs that give you back-end incentives, marketing and co-op dollars that are going to help you? Do they have great sales and marketing tools and collateral and things that can help you be successful in the market? Once you start working with that vendor, you want to make sure that you understand all the resources they're bringing for you. You need to understand the competitive landscape. So as you're picking a vendor partner, how saturated are they? What are your competitors doing in that market? And again, it doesn't mean you don't do it or you do it, but you need to understand what's going to be happening so that you can have a strategy to be able to go against that later on. You need to think about financial and technical due diligence. So on the financial standpoint, you want to make sure that a vendor you pick is not going to go out of business, right? So if you're plugging your customer into somebody else's data center for a cloud service, you don't want the lights to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday because you're going to be getting that phone call. So make sure that that vendor partner that you choose has the right access to capital. They may not be profitable right now. Many new startup cloud vendors are not. But do they have a path to profitability? How are they funded? How are they capitalized? What's their ownership structure look like? You want to understand these types of things as you're choosing a cloud vendor to make sure that you're not going to be in for any surprises with that. And then on the technical side, you need to kick the tires. You need to test this for yourself internally to make sure that you're comfortable with what it does. Are they able to deliver all the promises that they said that they can do? Does it integrate the right way they said with the other solutions that are part of your portfolio? All these things need to be validated, so that technical due diligence is equally important to the financial piece of it. You want to consider integrations and ecosystem partners. So again, if you're building out, like that last slide we showed you a bunch of kind of pieces of that solution, all that needs to work together. So you need to make sure that there's integrations between that all works and operates as one standalone solution as you take that to market. So that's going to be important as well. Validate operational requirements and automation. How is it going to work, right? How do you purchase that vendor, right? How do you provision the services once you sell them? How are you going to receive invoicing that goes with it? Is there automation available to be able to do that and scale that business? Or are you going to start having problems when you get up to your 100th customer, right? Does it become very manual with it? So understand all of that ahead of time. Review the contract terms and the service level agreements that vendor provides. You want to be able to understand what you're signing up for, right? So it's a good idea to take that, have somebody with some legal experience on there and read through that contract and make sure that you don't feel like you're taking on any additional risk. You'd be surprised what's in some of the fine print in these vendor contracts. You want to make sure that you're indemnified and protected against that, right? You You want to understand the service delivery requirements and support resources. So once you sell that service, again, it's in the cloud. You can't just tell the customer to go reboot their server. You've got to be able to take care of that for them when they call you. So how is that going to be done? When you get that call, do you understand the process to be able to fix and troubleshoot it? Maybe is the vendor providing a good knowledge base or run book for those services? How are they going to support you afterwards? So if you're not able to resolve it on that call with the customer, do they have a good support desk that you can call and your technicians can call up to be able to resolve the issues? Understand that whole process and how it works end to end before you sign up to be able to sell that vendor. Understand your cost basis and your discounts, right? How is it that you're going to be invoiced when it comes with that? So some vendors have different tiered pricing where when you hit certain clips, you get discounts, or maybe there's back-end incentives and rebates that go with it. If you're going to wrap that in, you're going to understand some forecasting that goes around it. So you really need to figure out how am I going to determine what my cost basis is? Is it percentage off list? Things like that. And then the discounts that you're going to have along with that as well as you move forward. Next is you want to choose based on the ability to change vendors. One of the neat things about building kind of an agnostic cloud bundle is that you should be able to pull out components and insert different ones if something changes down the road, right? It might be an endpoint security. You want to move from one antivirus solution to another to go along with it. It could be a backup solution. You want to pull one and plug in another one with it because it maybe changes in the market or something else you found, or maybe some technological superiority. You want to make sure you're not so locked in with a contract that you're not going to be able to make that change and that it won't be able to plug into that foundational solution that you've got. And then lastly, partner with an aggregator based on value and cost savings, right? So that's one of the things that I think you'll see an aggregator or distributor take on is that they go through a lot of this vetting process for you. They help you understand the cost basis. They do the vetting. They do the legal contract review for you, and you end up contracting with them through a standard contract. These are things that can take some of the time, some of the costs, and frankly, some of the risk out of choosing the vendor partners that go along with it. Sure, we do that at D&H. There's a lot of choices out there, and we hope that you would lean on us for that type of work would be one area of value that we bring. Okay? So now you've built your solution. You've plugged in the specific vendors that are going to make up that solution, and you're on to step 3, which is pricing and developing a pricing model for that solution. So again, I'll reiterate, understand your cost basis. So before you can start pricing, you want to figure out exactly how much you're going to be charged for it and how that's all going to work. You need to factor in any operational costs and automation benefits. So think about doing some type of a time study is how long does it take to make a purchase, to provision an order, right? To be able to get a service up and running. If you have a technician that has to spend an hour, you need to factor in their time spent. If it's something that's much faster and automated that you can do through a standard platform, that's going to have a benefit to your costs. So factor that in before you start making a price decision and add that into your cost basis. Next is model for future scale. Even though you might be thinking, okay, this is kind of small, I'm only going to probably sell this to about 10 customers, you don't want to be surprised if a year and a half or 2 years down the road, you're suddenly up to your 60th customer, right? Your 100th customer. That's a great thing, right? As you're growing your business. But you need to make sure that all the operational things and the pricing you're going to do is going to support future scale within that business. The last bullet in that column is understanding value-based pricing methodology. This is one that I'm personally pretty passionate about. I see a lot of people take the same approach they use for hardware when it comes to cloud services. They go, okay, I figured out my cost is $100, so I'd be really happy with a 20% markup. Let me sell that for $120. I would suggest not doing it that way. What I mean by value-based pricing, I was just confirming with a couple partners this morning, but the going rate to migrate a mailbox from on-premise email to Office 365 is typically around $100 a mailbox right now, right? Anybody disagree? See a different rate in the market? Am I close? Right? So let's just say that that's the price that the market will bear is $100. That's the price you should set it at. That's the value. Now, go find the cheapest way to deliver that. Right? Pick the right vendor, the right service experience where you can go and find a way to do that for $30 or $40 or $50, right? And then that becomes your margin, the difference between that. So don't set the price based on your cost. Set the price based on the market opportunity. That's where that research comes in with that. Next is research that market price for the anchor vendor. If you're using a foundation vendor like an Office 365, Azure, whatever it might be, understand what the market's bearing for that standalone solution so that as you add in the rest of the bundle components, you can answer that question when you're asked, yeah, but how much is the Office 365 piece of it? Make that sound extremely inexpensive and make your money off of some of the other stuff. At the end of the day, if you're selling the full solution, it doesn't much matter what the standalone piece is. You just want to be sure you're not caught in the game of selling that as a standalone service. Factor in your expenses related to service delivery costs. How much is it going to cost for you to take post-sales support calls and be able to support customers that are having questions or issues maybe with that service down the road? If you get an easy operational process with it, once again, it's going to give you a lower cost and it's going to be more beneficial to you. Leverage your volume discounts. So make sure you understand that what those vendors are going to be doing as far as you achieve certain volume tiers, what your cost becomes. And I would forecast and plan that business for future growth so that you can go to market and hit the ground running fast. Develop promotions and trials. This is a real common way for people to sell cloud solutions. And maybe part of your vendor selection even ties into their ability to offer trials and promotions with that. But if you get your customers started onto a cloud service, they're not going to be real likely, even if it's a trial and you don't charge them for a month, they're not going to want to pull the plug on that after they've done all that work of moving data and trying something out. So trials are a really good weapon and a good way to go out and sell cloud. And then lastly, consider volume pricing tiers. We talked about your cost basis for volume costs, but what about pricing for customers? Right? Could you drive further adoption or sell into bigger customers if you're giving them the opportunity to add seats and maybe receive some discounts in exchange for that? So consider that within your pricing schedule. Okay, so first 3 steps, you basically went out, built your solution, picked the vendors, and now you've got it priced, and now you're ready to get the sales team selling, right? No, not yet. So a couple more things. You need to establish key performance indicators or KPIs, right? Tiffany was just talking about some of the metrics that she uses within a business analysis discussion to figure out what's successful, things like conversion rates. So some of the ones that are real common you'll see is the number of leads you can drive per month. A lead is a customer conversation. It might come from marketing, it might come from a BI list, right? Different sources for it, but it's a chance to talk to a customer. What's the conversion rate on those leads, right? What's the win rate from there? How many wins a month is that going to result in? What's your average deal size, right? If we're selling into an 18-seat market, right, and we figure our pricing is $10 a seat, well, that's $180 a deal. You need to know this type of stuff to build it up. How many calls can you basically take with your sales team, right? What kind of capacity do you have to create opportunities? What's the cost per lead if you're building it out from a lead perspective? What's the cost for each of your associates? And what's attrition going to look like? Kind of plan out and say, how much am I expecting customer churn to come into play and lose some customers off of my cloud services? So these are all things you want to put together and understand these metrics so that you can build out dashboards to be able to manage and plan your business as you execute. Once you have the KPI, step 5 moves into financial planning and analysis. So you want to be able to build a bottoms-up model, and we've got some pretty cool templates I'd be happy to share where you plug in the KPIs that you agreed upon, right? And then it builds out a 3-year look at what that business might look like for you over time. And it's a nice way to look at it and figure out your future growth plans. But once you have that plan in place, you need to review the financial output, make sure it meets your company's return on investment expectations. You need to make sure that you're not trying to adjust the results, right? Don't go in there and say, well, I don't like that number. I want it to be $1 million in revenue, so I'll just change that to $1 million. You need to go back and change the lead indicators, like how many leads, what conversion rate, how many wins, how many customers, attrition, et cetera, right, to come to that. So it's really tempting to change the output, the lag indicator. You have to change the lead indicator. Review your short-term, long-term, and trending. Understand what that's going to look like over that period, right? You don't just want to look at the first year, the first couple months. You need to plan that over a longer period of time so you can see at what point you become profitable, at what point you start really making some money from these solutions. Understand cash flow impact. So in some cases, you're going to have an impact to your cash flow if you maybe have to prepay for some cloud services, which some vendors will require. Or if you're converting maybe from something you used to sell like traditionally on a project basis where every 3 years you refreshed it, and now you're moving it to a monthly recurring model where you're going to recognize that over that 3-year period instead. These are going to have some potential impact to your financials. So you want to understand if this model is going to do that and then how you mitigate that risk and make sure you're comfortable with any changes that go with it. You have to plan for investments and funding sources, right? We had in there cost per lead on the last slide for marketing. There is a cost, right? It's not free, and you have to make some investments in your business. Maybe it's hiring salespeople. Maybe it's changing the way that you're paying commission and accelerating that, paying ahead of the curve a little bit. These are investments you're going to have, and you have to understand that in your financial model so that you know whether you're comfortable with it and then where you're going to get the money. Are you self-funding it from your balance sheet or is somebody loaning you money, right? How are you going to pay for it? Conduct a risk assessment and develop a mitigation plan. So even the best plans have risk to them. So understand where those risk points are, right? How high of a risk it is, and then what you're going to do if that risk materializes. That's really important to make sure you're executing and keeping on track with your plan. And then lastly, and maybe most importantly, the last bullet is secure executive commitment based on that financial plan. If your executive team is not aligned, doesn't agree with the plan, right, don't move forward with it. You have to find a way to work it out and make sure that all of you agree on what you're doing going forward and that you agree on the financial model. If not, make the changes now, because if you have that resistance going on internally, you're doomed for failure with your plan. Okay? So those are real key pieces. They kind of go hand in hand, developing the KPIs and then doing the analysis and the full model that goes with that. Again, be happy to share with you a couple modeling tools to make that fairly easy to put together. So just ping me after or stop by the trade show booth and we'll get you a copy of that. Step 6 is building out your operational process. So some of the things you want to do with that, first of all, is determine your customer contracting process. We talked a little bit about the vendor contract with you, but how are you going to contract your customer? One of the best practices we've seen out in the market is that you have what's called a master services agreement, where you have kind of all your legal terms and conditions and all that type of stuff, payment terms, things like that go along with it. And then as they add different cloud and managed services, you just have kind of a sub-SLA agreement specific to that service that goes with it. That will allow you to keep one agreement in place and then scale as new solutions come to market that you want to sell them or as they consume more. You want to choose a scalable automation platform. If you have to go every time, if it's 5 vendors in your bundle, let's say, and you have to go to each vendor's portal and purchase, right, and provision and do that, right, that's a lot of steps that go with it. And then the good news, a customer calls you a month later and says, hey, we just hired 10 more people. Could you do that again? You're like, all right. You go back and set it all up again. And now suddenly it's a different date, so you're getting invoiced differently than you have to invoice them. And now there's cash flow, and you're spending hours with a spreadsheet trying to reconcile it. Does anybody go through that today? I know it's a big pain point that we see with a lot of partners. There's a lot of automation platforms out there that will allow you to purchase, provision, manage your subscription, and receive a consolidated, detailed invoice for each customer that you have, in a nice format. So take a look at some of that. And self-servingly, I'll tell you that D&H has made big investments in a platform to do that for you, so we can put that all together and make that part of it easy, because you do have options to go out and buy your own platforms, your own software to do it, but they can be fairly expensive. We felt that that was our role to make that investment to help our partners be successful when it comes to operations. Understand your accounts payable and your accounts receivable requirements. You need to make sure that you're not paying before you are paid wherever possible. That causes cash flow issues, hurts profitability. You understand when the timing is going to be. When is that vendor going to invoice me? What are the terms on that, right? And then on the other side, how am I going to collect from my customer? When are they going to pay me? Sometimes with cloud, you have things that are consumption-based, which it's zero at the beginning of the month, and then it's like an electric bill, right? Things like Microsoft Azure, AWS, where you're going to get billed at the end of the month based on that consumption. Other ones are kind of preset ahead of time based on maybe the number of seats that they have, very common in a SaaS model. So understand exactly what's going to be happening with AP and AR so you can ensure smooth financials. Implement service delivery tools. So you understood right back a couple steps ago how you need to support and manage those services and that customer experience. If you have to make any of those implementations of those tools, now's the time to do it before you go to market. So sometimes you need to buy a PSA tool, like common ones are like ConnectWise or Autotask, right? Sometimes you're going to need to hire some staff to be able to build out the operational process. These are things you want to think about as you're kind of planning here in step 6. You want to develop reporting and financial tracking. So there's 2 things you need to track. The first is you have to be able to report on those KPIs that you charted out. Otherwise, there's no sense to use them if you can't report back and see how you're doing against them, right? And secondly, you need to be able to pull reporting to understand your revenue and profit recognition. Again, there's a lot of automation tools. We've got a great automation platform to help with pieces of that so that you can understand how your business is progressing and that you can make sure you're on top of all the financials that go along with it. Outline your customer onboarding and training process. So you work real hard in the sales and marketing process to bring on a customer. One of the important elements is to make sure that their onboarding experience and initial experience that they have with your cloud services is a positive one, and one that sees immediate value. So overinvest in that experience, training that customer to use those solutions. Another thing we see, like for example, I'll use Office 365 again. A lot of people buy it for the email, but there's actually a lot of other features in there, right? There's robust features around things like collaboration solutions, higher end security, and some people don't bother to ever fire those up, yet they're paying for them. the less of that service your customer uses, the more risk it is that they're going to churn and walk away from you down the road. So take the time to train them on how to fully get the value out of that solution that you put together for them. You want to determine your post-sale support process. So, make sure the customer understands, hey, this is our role, right? This is what's going to happen. If you have a question or an issue that goes with it, you call this number, you email this. Here's a chat box for you. Hey, just so you know, we've got vendors that are backing us that we're going to work with here. Map out that end-to-end process and over-communicate that to the customer. Again, they need to manage that customer experience. Establish a vendor management plan and resources. So you're bringing those vendors on board. Sometimes they're going to be willing to make investments in MDF funds or things like that. They're going to want to have meetings with you and understand your plans. So you want to have, resources in place to be able to go have those vendor conversations. I think you'll see the synergies you can build are really tremendous, but plan that out in the operational phase here in step 6. And then lastly, design a quality assurance process. You want to make sure that you are doing surveys, having customer conversations, a customer success team, somebody that's checking back with that customer periodically to say, how's it going, right? You getting what you want out of that service? Everything working okay? Is there any changes to your business we need to know about? And what are you going to do to maybe win that customer back if for some reason they did walk away? So these are all processes that you should map out, kind of flow chart it there as you're building out your cloud business. Okay? Step 7 is your marketing strategy. So marketing is critical with cloud. And Tiffany mentioned the buyer's journey. So I also work a lot with CompTIA, and we just did a project with the advisory board that I'm on there around mapping out the buyer's journey. Is there anybody here that's a CompTIA member? A couple of you? They've got some great content that they're publishing around that, and it's probably worth the read. I'd be happy to share some of that information if anybody wants as well. But understanding what the customer goes through. But what we did with that project is we compared kind of the old school way the customers bought and then what's happening in today's buyer's journey. And what we're seeing is that there's an awful lot more around education and often delivered digitally with marketing. Also, the type of buyer is changing. It's not so much always a technical buyer that we maybe worked with in the IT department. It's oftentimes a line of business decision maker who went out and swiped credit cards buying some cloud solutions. This is your new buyer that you need to understand. And the way they tend to buy, again, is they want to learn about the products. They don't necessarily want to engage with a salesperson out of the gate. Usually by the time they engage sales, they already have an idea of what they're looking for. So you making sure that you have good content, that you're able to do digital marketing and share that using things like social media, kind of promoting it. Invest in search engine optimization to make sure your name comes up when customers search things like cloud email, cloud file sharing, things like that, that your solutions pop up like that is going to be critical. But some of the steps that you want to take in the marketing piece of it is understand your monthly lead requirement. Remember, we built a KPI plan that said how many leads we need. What is that number of leads? Develop a master catalog of different marketing activities and have some idea how many leads you think it'll drive. Some examples on the right, things like webinars, events, right? Search engine optimization, social media. How many actionable pings or leads are you going to be able to drive off of each of those on a monthly basis? And does the amount of activity you're doing add up to meet what you need to drive your plan for that? You want to align costs, basically with that plan. So each of those activities, what's it going to cost you to do that? Some of them are close to free. Some of them, like if you're doing events and things, they could be quite expensive. So understand that, budget for it, and then make sure you're comfortable with what your marketing plan looks like. You want to plan these monthly activities using that master catalog. So literally, you can look and say, okay, if I wanted 500 leads a month, each month, am I doing enough things to get my 500? Chart that out at least 6 months in advance so you have some idea what a marketing calendar looks like, and somebody's accountable for bringing those leads in for the sales team. Target your new buyers with digital marketing. We kind of talked about that already, but I want to reemphasize that, making sure you're getting that content that you built out there. Focus on market education, becoming a thought leader around cloud. There's a lot of people in our industry that are still trying to figure out cloud, what it all means and how to do it. There's a lot more people that are end clients that are just as confused, and they've probably already been burned and made some mistakes. So be one of the thought leaders that helps take them to what this new technology can do for their business. Make sure your activities can be quantified and actionable, right? Branding is important, I won't deny that, but you need to have leads that are quantifiable and actionable that you can actually make sure that they lead to customer conversations with. And then lastly, identify your funding sources. We said that earlier in the financial piece, but how are you going to pay for this marketing? Is it, again, you're on your own dime? Are you going to have vendors that maybe contribute? Are they going to do things to help you build out this plan? So these are all things with marketing. So that's 7 steps that we looked at there, and the 8th and final step, right, and a lot of people start with this, is the sales organization. So, I've been a sales guy my whole life, and I always thought that I should start with it. Everything starts and ends with sales. When it comes to cloud, I would say don't approach it that way. This is the last team you want to bring in, because if they start selling things before you're operationally ready, before you figured out service delivery and support, before you figured out the financial model, all these types of things, they can really screw up your financials, really screw up your customer experience. So it's really critical to take those 7 steps before you bring in the sales experts and the sales organization. Once you do get to the sales piece of it, there's some things that you're going to fundamentally need to do to be successful with cloud. One of the first is adjusting the compensation and incentive plan. I always like to give the email example. So how many people sell email today or have in their careers? Every hand should go up. We've all sold Exchange, right? The old days, you sold a server, maybe it's HP, Lenovo, and you buy Microsoft Exchange software and you install it, and then every 4 years you refresh that whole environment, right? Now it's commonly Office 365 that goes with that. Well, if you have a sales team that's compensated on the percentage of gross profit dollars they bring in, right, like so many are, typically 20% of GP you bring in is your commission, you're going to be very inclined to sell that on-premise solution, because maybe you're going to sell a $10,000 server or $2,000 worth of software, some installation, it's a $15,000 deal, right? And they're getting 20% of that maybe, then in GP, and then 20% of that, they're going to make, I don't know, $700 or $800 by selling that solution that goes along with that, right? Now you move it to Microsoft Office 365, and maybe it's 100 seats at $10, so it's $1,000 a month. You're making 20 points on that. That's $200 in profit. Take 20% for the sales commission. That's $40 a month. So the salesperson can make $40 or $800. Which one are they going to sell? I'm going to take the $800 one, right? So you have to have a sales compensation plan that's going to reward that annuity. The simplest way to deal with it, and there's so many opinions on the best way to deal with comp, we could have a whole session on that, but the simplest one is multiply by 12 and pay them for 1 year's worth of the cloud services up front. If you're looking for just a quick bang answer, that's the easiest one. Typically, that'll start to reconcile with what they would have got by selling it on-premise. Establish sales goals tied to those KPIs in the plan. If there's a certain number of leads that have to be followed up on, a certain conversion rate, right? Start charting that type of stuff with your sales organization. Align with your marketing strategy. Tiffany mentioned earlier that sales and marketing are like, oil and water are always at each other. Not at D&H, by the way. We love our marketing team. But it's really critical that you're working closely and you're aligned, that you have one strategy, that sales understands what marketing is going to do to drive the leads and are able to follow up. Provide training for overall cloud and financial acumen. First of all, before they can sell a solution, your salespeople need to understand, how does cloud work? Why is it a benefit? Kind of the fundamentals there. What's the financial differences in this? Are there tax implications? All that type of stuff. You need to make sure that your salespeople are trained on that piece of it, right? Then after that, you also want to make sure you deliver a solution and a technical training so they can sell your specific cloud solutions that you've built out. You need to make sure that they're able to engage and have conversations with line of business and non-IT decision makers within your customer base as a critical step. You need to set expectations for how you expect the sales pipeline to be managed, right? Are you using a CRM tool to do that? It's probably a best practice so that you can basically gauge what's going to be happening and get better with your forecasting process. Your pre-sales opportunity support process. So you're going to train salespeople about the 100 frequently asked questions with this solution, and inevitably they'll hang up the phone, and the first thing is that they're going to have question number 101 come up. So you need to have a good path that they can go through for resources to help with pre-sales support, right? What if the customer asks different questions? Where do they go for that? Develop an upsell, cross-sell process. So there is the net new logo, right? Recruiting a brand new customer with it. Once you land that customer, what things can you upsell or cross-sell into that customer to be able to increase consumption of your cloud services? That's a really important strategy, right? Are you going to sell new products? Are you going to help expand that cloud service deeper in that organization with more users? You'll have a strategy. Design your engagement process to drive consumption. We talked about training as one strategy, but what about following up afterwards to help them understand how to get more value out of that solution, or as new features become available, communicate that to them? That's a key piece of the sales process. Determine the customer business review process. How are you going to handle quarterly or monthly business reviews to make sure that they're getting the value they expected and to show all the value you're bringing to the table? How many support calls did you take on that one there? How many times did you fix an issue, maybe patch security issues that go along with it? That's going to be important in the customer discussion. And then lastly, develop a customer experience and win-back process. One of the best practices we see is that you have a separate team or person, a resource to handle that part of it. You let your salespeople focus on the sale, and then you have a customer success team that checks to make sure that everything is working properly, and if for some reason that customer does leave, that you're following up. We did a initiative where we were calling up with customers that lost their end users, just to the partner, and saying, hey, you lost this customer about 3 months ago. Have you checked back with them yet to see if they're happy with the new solution that they rolled out? And we actually won, I think it was 7% of those we were able to win back down the road, like 3 to 6 months later. That's not bad, right? You're not going to win them all back. They left you for a reason. But winning back 7% of that business, it was like found money, right? It's found sales. So something worth taking up within your own business with that. So those are the 8 steps. And just to summarize, right, in order, these are sequential. You want to build that solution out. You want to plug in the vendor partners that are going to work best for your business. Then you want to develop your pricing model, how you're going to price that solution. Establish your key performance indicators, which then turn into your financial model in step 5, right? Make sure everybody's in line with that and happy with it. Build out your operational process of how you're going to handle this cloud business. Think about every scenario and what that process needs to be. Develop a marketing strategy and make sure it fits the modern buyer's journey that's taking shape in the market. And then lastly, and not least, you bring in the sales organization and drive your entire go-to-market with it. So those are the 8 steps. We'd be happy to share this content. Again, we do have some of the modeling tools that we'd be happy to share with you that you can use within your business, right? And we've got people that will sit down and kind of help you go through some of these steps. It depends on the complexity, but it could be anywhere from a 2 to 4 hour workshop that we sit down and maybe help you go through some of this as part of what we're doing. I also want to share with you, how can D&H help with your cloud strategy, right? Beyond what I just stated about helping you through this 8-step process. So we have 5 pillars in our cloud framework, how we go to market with it. And it's all about empowering partners like you to capture the cloud market opportunity. So the first thing we did this year is we formed a formal cloud business unit where we put together sales, marketing, financial, operational, technical, and business development resources all under one team to be able to be successful. We've scaled that from about 6 people to 30 people in the first part of this year, so we're making investments there. Next is the Success Path to Cloud program. This is all about helping partners understand how to build a profitable managed services and cloud practice. So we bring a lot of content from third-party speakers in to take a look at different ways to help you do that. So stay tuned for more content if this is an area where you're looking to potentially grab value from D&H. Our cloud clusters. So we did a lot of work around pre-building different solution bundles that you can easily replicate and brand yourself and take to market. We make sure that we have a foundational vendor and that all of the solutions technically integrate and add to the value that the solution is. If you sell it as a complete solution, it's going to give you an opportunity to bring more margin. And we actually set up our vendor management team internally around cloud clusters. They each manage their own cluster like that. So they're not thinking about individual point vendors or products. They're thinking about the whole integrated solution and how we help partners sell that. Next is our digital commerce platform. I mentioned this, but the D&H Cloud Marketplace, it allows you to go up and then set up your end customer, and then on their behalf, purchase, provision, manage and invoice multi-vendor cloud solutions and cloud clusters on behalf of that end user. Some of the cool features that we just brought together in our latest iteration of that platform, things like the ability to white label it, put your brand on it, flow it down to the end user, right, and let them do some self-administration if you want. The ability to have automated invoicing through PSA integration. So if you use ConnectWise or Autotask, you can easily set it up so that your invoicing is just seamlessly ported into that PSA tool each month. You don't have to have extra touch costs with it. And one of the favorite ones I have is the ability to add your own services. Our vision is that partners are going to be able to add their own managed services and professional services or even hardware into our marketplace and then be able to flow that down or use that internally to manage their business. So we want to make sure that the partner services are a big part of what we're adding into cloud to help you drive more profitability and streamline your operations. We'll be demoing that platform in just a little bit here at the Tech Fair, so swing by the cloud booth if you want to take a look at it. And then the last column in our strategy is what we call our X as a Service enablement and financing. So what this is all about is that we're taking our legacy hardware business that we're very proud of and built up. We do millions of endpoint devices, and we want to be able to help you offer those as part of your subscription business. So what we did is we pair that up with an asset disposition service, right? So it's an OpEx model by general accounting principles. And we set that up with a monthly financing plan so that your end customer gets a monthly invoice for the hardware products, right? That's device as a service that Peter had mentioned earlier. Where it becomes X as a service is when you use our platform and bundle in these cloud solutions, right? And bundle in your own professional managed services. Now everything is put together in one solution bundle that's all done in an OpEx monthly model. So this, we believe, is, what we're seeing in the market is that it's the future of the way that people looking to consume technology is they want everything done in that OpEx type of model. So we make that very easy at D&H, and we've got a team of experts to help you build that out. So that's our cloud go-to-market strategy, right? A little bit more about the cloud platform that we laid out there. But you can go to dnh.com/cloud. You're going to find this information, resources that we have available for you. And we also invested in dedicated regional salespeople, so based on where you're located, right? So Tom Zora is sitting right over there. He covers Chicago for us. So there's people like Tom that are in Harrisburg or Buffalo, where our 2 cloud offices are, that are able to help support this business for you. Okay? So happy to stick around afterwards with any questions, but just a couple kind of housekeeping notes for you there. So conference highlights. So we're going to have on the show floor, we're going to have a cloud pavilion and a pro AV pavilion. So we encourage you to stop by and check that out. These are some of the investments we're making. Why? Because we think the market growth is tremendous there, and we hope you'll feel the same way. Educational seminars we'll be doing throughout the event to help you learn more about ways to grow your business. The D&H Central Aisle, so there's all the things that D&H can do for you. They're going to be found on the sales floor in the tech conference. You go check out there. We encourage you to check out our on-demand training. So we've got things happening that you can go to dnh.com and pull down videos for around Cisco Wi-Fi, Google Chrome Enterprise, the Cloud Marketplace demos up there, and building a complete Pro AV projection solution, right? How do you go and take these solutions to market? These are all things that are on demand on our website. A lot of the sessions from this conference we're going to be posting up on the website. So if there's something you couldn't get to today that you want to see, check the D&H site in the next week, and I think you'll see those up there. And then lastly, a couple upcoming lab trainings. So September 17th, we are doing another cloud solution around some specific vendor demonstrations that tie into our marketplace, so you can see how some of this works in reality. In October, we'll have a Cisco Meraki Toberfest, I think they're calling it there. That's a mouthful, but you can learn more about that product solution. And then in December, another cloud solutions one where we're going to be bringing out some additional cloud vendors and demonstrating how those can be taken to market for you. So again, dnh.com is the key to be able to pick all this up. So we're just wrapping up on time here, but any questions that I can answer about cloud business or how D&H is approaching the market? Nailed it? Simple? All right, well, the tech fair is going to be starting, I think, in the next 5 minutes or so. So we encourage you to head over there and meet with a lot of our vendor partners. It's going to be, I think, a great, energetic event over there. Pretty sure there's going to be some food, some snacks. Is the bar open over there? Ryan Flynn, you would know. Don't know if it's open yet? Soon. So thanks again for joining us, everybody. We appreciate your time and your business.